If you thought revisiting the cursed Minakami village in this new remake would be just a peaceful, nostalgia-driven stroll, you've probably already realized how wrong you were. The Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly remake didn't just bring incredible graphics and an even heavier atmosphere, it also started demanding much more from our mastery of the camera obscura. That's why today we're leaving the basics entirely aside. I've prepared 10 advanced tips and mechanical secrets that the game simply doesn't explain well, but that you definitely need to know to dominate the ghosts and survive this endless night. Grab your camera and follow me.
Everyone died.
There's a detail in this remake that seems small the first time you see it, but it completely changes the way you play. Holding Mayu's hand isn't just a beautiful narrative element to reinforce the bond between the two sisters. In practice, it's the best free resource the game puts in your hand from the start. And ignoring it is a mistake you'll feel on your skin in the most difficult situations. Every time you hold her hand, Mayu recovers HP and willpower instantly without spending any items. Think carefully about what this means. You have a source of healing and energy restoration available at any time at no cost, just by pressing a button. After coming out of heavy combat, taking an unexpected hit, or overusing special shots, the first thing you should do is find Mayu and hold her hand before moving on to the next area. In addition to healing, holding her hand also prevents Mayu from having an emotional collapse in the darkest and most oppressive regions of the game. She is vulnerable to the village's energies in a way that Miu is not, and when you leave her alone for too long in these areas, the consequences appear. The remake clearly made this mechanic much more central than it was in the original, and you can feel that the developers wanted you to truly treat this bond as a priority, not as something optional. What impressed me most was realizing that this isn't just a cold survival mechanic. The game uses this simple gesture of holding hands to constantly remind you of what is at stake emotionally. Every time you seek Mayu out after a scare, you are reinforcing the relationship between the two in a way that no story text could achieve alone. It's one of the smartest touches of this remake, and one more reason for you to pay attention to every moment she is by your side. To truly survive, you need to completely change how you view the game's interface. Forget focusing only on your traditional health bar and start treating your willpower bar as your true extra salvation. During my playthroughs, I noticed that those who ignore this meter end up going through moments of pure despair very quickly. It is essentially your primary line of defense against the village's hauntings, and keeping it under control is the difference between mastering combat or becoming a statistic. The big problem is that this bar drains in ways that often go unnoticed in the heat of the moment. If you panic and start running non-stop during a confrontation, it will drop drastically. Taking direct damage or overusing dodges also takes a high toll on your energy. But what caught me most by surprise was the leer attack, where spirits stare at you from a distance, draining your will just with that disturbing gaze. It's a mechanic that cleverly punishes you for the psychological terror the game builds. If you let this bar reach 0, the punishment is brutal. Without willpower, you can say goodbye to your special shots, losing all your special offensive power when you need it most. Even worse, your character becomes exhausted and extremely vulnerable, becoming an easy target for knockdowns. Being thrown to the ground repeatedly while ghosts approach isn't just scary, it's a direct ticket to the game over screen. You lose total control of the battle's rhythm. The good news is that there is an aggressive and very rewarding way to recover this vital energy. The fastest and most efficient tactic in the game is to actively seek the fatal frame, waiting for that exact moment when the red light starts flashing before an enemy attack. Landing the shot in this golden millisecond not only deals massive damage to the haunting, but also restores your willpower immediately. It's a game of patience and cold blood, where you need to set fear aside and wait for the ghost to get terrifyingly close to guarantee your own survival. One of the things that impressed me most about this remake was realizing that the camera stopped being just a weapon and became a true tactical system. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake now gives you 3 completely different filters to use during combat, and understanding when to switch between them is what separates someone who is just surviving from someone who is truly in control of the situation. If you're still using the default filter at all times, know that you're leaving a lot of advantage on the table. The first filter you need to learn to use well is the paraceptual. Think of it as your sniper mode. It gives you a range far superior to the other two, and most importantly, applies a brutal damage bonus to spirits that haven't noticed your presence yet. This means you can and should use this filter before any direct confrontation, attacking from afar while the enemy has their back turned or is distracted. Starting a fight with half the spirits bar already gone changes everything. When spirits start appearing in groups and the situation gets chaotic, it's time to call in the exposure. This filter has the fastest reload in the entire game, which is an absurd advantage when you're being surrounded and need to take photos in non-stop sequence. A detail few people mention is that exposure also reveals items and hidden areas in the environment during exploration, so it's well worth having it equipped while you search every corner of the cursed houses. Now, the Radiant is the filter that will test your nerves. It delivers the highest damage of all, with powerful critical hits. But it has 2 serious costs. It requires you to get very close to the spirit, and it consumes your willpower bar. The smartest way to use it is right after executing a fatal frame hit on a slower boss, taking advantage of that window of vulnerability to quickly switch to Radiant and unload as much damage as possible. This fast switching between the 3 filters in the middle of combat is without a doubt the biggest tactical novelty this remake brought. There's a mechanic we sometimes use haphazardly without thinking, and then regret the moment we need it most. I'm talking about special shots, those special blasts that each filter possesses and that cost your willpower bar to use. Wasting willpower for no reason is a mistake that will cost you dearly later. So before you start using them, you need to understand exactly what each one does. Each filter has its own special shot with a completely different effect. The standard filter applies a stun to the spirit, giving you that precious window to breathe or reposition. The paraceptual blinds the enemy, interrupting more aggressive attacks. The exposure slows down everything around you, which is especially powerful in groups. And the Radiant releases an absurd burst of damage, the most destructive of all. These are 4 distinct tools, and understanding the right situation for each is what makes the real difference. The golden rule is simple. Save the special shot for the most critical moments, or better yet, use it when the spirit enters fatal time, that state of vulnerability where every hit hurts much more. Wasting a Radiant burst on a common spirit is throwing willpower away, but using that same burst on a boss that just entered fatal time is one of the most satisfying moments this game can offer. Now, if you want to spam special shots more frequently than usual, the exposure filter is your ally. Because it has the fastest reload in the game, it allows you to chain these special shots in sequence much more efficiently than any other filter. In situations where you are surrounded and need to use the slow effect repeatedly to control the mess, switching to exposure and exploiting this fast cadence can literally save your run. If there's one thing I learned early in this remake and wish I had known even sooner, it's that prayer beads are not a resource you can ignore or save for later. These items scattered throughout the village are the foundation of your real progress in the game, and collecting each one carefully from the early chapters makes an absurd difference in your ability to survive in the later stages. Don't pass by any corner without searching every detail of the environment. When you go to spend these prayer beads, the order of priority matters a lot. Start by investing in focus, zoom, reload speed, and charge speed before anything else. These 4 upgrades directly affect your efficiency when taking photos, which is literally the only way you deal damage in the game. Reaching a fatal frame faster, reloading without that agonizing delay, and closing the zoom with precision are improvements you will feel in every combat, from the simplest to the heaviest bosses. Once these 4 are at a decent level, then you can direct resources to power and special shot. The increase in raw damage and the power of special shots become much more impactful when you already have combat agility sorted out. Investing in power before having a good reload speed, for example, is like having a powerful weapon that takes an eternity to use again. The order makes all the difference. The detail that makes this system even smarter is the existence of reversion stones, which allow you to completely reset your upgrades and redistribute everything from scratch. This means you can and should rethink your build as chapters progress and challenges change. A setup that works perfectly for exploration might not be ideal for a specific boss. Don't be afraid to use reversion stones strategically, because this chapter-by-chapter optimization flexibility is exactly what the game puts in your hand for you to use intelligently. If you played the original Fatal Frame 2 on the PS2, there is a muscle memory that this remake will break completely, and the sooner you accept that, the better. In the original game, the standard strategy was to wait for the spirit to attack, absorb its moment of vulnerability, and then take the photo. It works, but it's slow and passive. The remake changed the controls in a way that turns this approach into something almost obsolete, and learning to play proactively here is what will really elevate your level. The biggest change is that you can now walk while aiming the camera. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. You can advance toward the spirit while charging your shot, close the distance at the right moment, and release the shutter with maximum impact. This intentional closing movement, combined with a charged shot, generates damage that simply wasn't possible to replicate with the stiff PS2 controls. It's a new combat language the game teaches you from the very first minutes. The zero shot and special shot deserve special attention in this context. When you were close to the spirit when releasing these 2 shots, the damage caused is absurd compared to using the same technique from afar. The game rewards the courage to get close, and this goes against the instinct of anyone who learned to play this style of horror by keeping their distance. But when you gain that confidence to close the space at the right moment, the fights start to feel much more controlled than scary. Modern motion controls also enter this equation in a surprising way. The camera responds more fluidly and intuitively than any previous version of the game, which means that the calculated approach I'm describing becomes much more precise in practice. You can track the erratic movement of spirits without losing your framing, which was exactly the kind of frustration that made the original's combat so stressful. The remake was clearly designed for you to feel in control of the situation, not at the mercy of it. There's a mistake we players sometimes make in this remake, which is only remembering to use the camera when some ghost is trying to kill you. If you play like that, you'll struggle a lot later on. The true secret to getting strong in the game is building the habit of photographing things that aren't a direct threat, such as strange shadows, objects that seem to have disappeared from the environment, and especially peaceful spirits. Your camera is also an investigative tool, and the game rewards those who are curious exponentially. To do this the right way, you need to start using the paraceptual filter outside of tense moments. It's not just for taking that long-distance shot at enemies before the fight starts. When you're walking through the village and the environment goes quiet, raise your camera with this filter equipped. It has the incredible ability to reveal traces and trails of ancient spirits that pass through there. It's as if you're following the footprints of the past, seeing echoes of history that would be totally invisible to the naked eye. As for finding valuable resources that will save you, your best friend is the exposure filter. It is the key to revealing hidden areas and items concealed in abandoned houses and corridors. A crucial detail here is to stay very alert to the twin statues scattered around the map and to those non-hostile ghosts that appear in a flash for just a few seconds. Photographing these elements quickly guarantees you a massive amount of spirit points. It's such a large injection of points that it completely changes the rhythm of your progression in the game. All this exploration effort has a very clear destination at the Butterfly Lantern, which is where you actually reap the fruits of this labor. That's where you'll use these points to improve your equipment and take advantage of the rare items you manage to reveal with your photography. understand that this routine of hunting secrets around the village isn't just extra content for completionists, but rather an essential and mandatory farming process. If you don't do it, your camera will remain weak, and the final chapters will punish you mercilessly for that lack of preparation. You know that moment of relief in horror games when you finally find a glowing item on the floor? Well, in the Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly remake, you need to forget that feeling of safety immediately. The developers brought back one of the franchise's most cruel and iconic mechanics, but they managed to make everything even more tense. Now, the simple act of trying to pick up a healing item or a roll of film has turned into a true Russian roulette for your nerves. What happens is that while Mio slowly stretches her arm to reach the object, there is a huge chance a ghost will try to grab you by surprise, coming right out of the floor. This is a classic trap that series veterans already know very well, only in this version, it has returned considerably faster and more implacable. The animation was made in a way that plays with your anxiety, making you hold your breath every time you decide to interact with anything in the environment. If you slip up and let that ghostly hand catch you, the damage goes far beyond a simple jump scare in your chair. You will take direct damage to your HP, and to make matters worse, you'll also lose a good portion of your precious willpower bar. Running out of willpower for no reason is the worst position you can put yourself in before a real fight. To avoid this disaster, your only way out is to have sharp reflexes and pull your arm back immediately using the dodge button. Therefore, my main recommendation for your survival is to completely change your posture when collecting resources throughout the villages. Never rush in thinking the item is already yours for free. Every time you bend down to grab something, keep your finger positioned on the dodge button, ready to react the exact millisecond the enemy hand appears on the screen. Building this habit of distrusting even the rewards will save your life and keep your energy intact for when the real bosses appear. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in this remake is ignoring charms or using your best film on the wrong ghosts. This remake has no mercy for those who play carelessly, and the game will charge you dearly for every poor inventory decision. Before exploring any new area, stop at the save points, the butterfly lanterns, and equip your charms carefully. They offer real bonuses that significantly change combat dynamics, such as faster reloading, increased photo damage, or willpower recovery. Willpower recovery charms are especially valuable because that bar, as you already know, is a resource that drains fast. But reload and damage charms also deserve attention depending on your current playstyle. If you're in an area full of aggressive and fast spirits, a reload charm can be the difference between getting out alive or not. The big trick is that you can and should reassemble this combination whenever possible, adapting your charms to the specific challenge ahead. The golden rule is simple. Use basic film for common ghosts and save type 90 or any superior type exclusively for bosses. It sounds obvious, but it's very easy to fall into the temptation of using powerful film on a hallway spirit that appears repeatedly. Those common spirits die with basic film anyway. It might take a bit longer, but they die. Wasting a type 90 on something unnecessary can leave you completely helpless when a boss appears. What makes this system so brutal is that the remake actively punishes those who don't know how to save. Unlike many horror games that give you resources in abundance, here you feel the weight of every wrong decision accumulating over the hours of play. Reaching an important boss with weak film in your camera is a frustrating experience you definitely don't want to have. Respect the inventory, be strategic with charms, and treat every type 90 like it's your last hope, because, depending on the moment, it will be exactly that. You know that instinct to run straight to the next main objective when the game's mood gets too heavy and the tension rises? In the remake, you need to fight that urge with all your strength. One of the biggest additions to this version is the inclusion of several side stories and new areas that simply beg for your exploration.
If you focus only on the main campaign to finish quickly, you'll miss a giant part of the experience. And worse yet, you'll reach the final chapters much weaker than you should be. The reward for going off the obvious path and investigating these side stories is immediate and very practical for your survival. It's by exploring these parallel tales of the village that you will find valuable broken spirit stones and a generous amount of additional prayer beads that would otherwise be hidden forever. Think of these items as indirect upgrade crystals, essential for making your camera powerful enough to deal with advanced nightmares. Ignoring these events is, in practice, giving up on getting strong in the game. But this extra exploration isn't just about upgrades and raw strength. The remake did a fantastic job of expanding the universe and the history of the Cursed Village through these missions. Each new area you discover dives even deeper into the game's lore, revealing macabre details that connect the main narrative points in a surprising way. And the most important detail for those who like to see everything, completing these side stories is what unlocks the new variations of the classic endings that veterans love so much. Therefore, I give you sincere advice from someone who has already struggled here. Do not skip a single one of these side stories. If your goal is to achieve the coveted 100% completion, or especially if you want to watch the true, definitive ending that this remake hides, doing this side content is absolutely mandatory. It's a journey that requires a bit more courage and patience to brave the dark, but I guarantee that the conclusion of Mio and Mayu's story is worth every extra scare you'll take along the way.